Hey guys, today we'll be working on a 2002 Chevy Silverado. We'll be doing all the brake lines on the rear and all the hoses, and then also bleed the system. Let's get into it.
I'm replacing all the metal brake line in the back here. I did the front years ago, but I never got around to the back, so I'm going to be doing that today. So you're going to need some 3/16 brake lines and a flaring kit to flare the brake lines. I like to use the copper because it's easier to bend versus the regular one. You just want to make it, you don't want to go too tight because you don't want to destroy the hose unless you're planning on replacing it. In this case, I'm going to be replacing this hose, so won't really matter. But if you're planning on keeping this, then you gotta just be careful how much you crimp on it, just enough to where just no fluid is coming out of the line. So let's go ahead and break this loose. Break this loose now. So this is a 9/16 brake line tool, and that's something I used to break this loose. So now we have this line completely off. So we're gonna reuse these fittings. So when we make up our new line, we're gonna make sure we put these on there first before we do the flaring end. Otherwise, you won't be able to put them on or take them off. All right. I'm just gonna cut this tip off so we can get the connector off. Nice cut, so it's easy to take the end off. And the way this tool works, as you turn it around, you turn this to keep, making sure you're cutting it, and until you get all the way through, and then it should come right off. But the key is to, as you're turning around, slowly, and put some tension on it to cut it off. And now we have our end piece here that we're going to reuse on the new one, in the new copper line. We also got to cut the other end off, so let's just go ahead and do that while we're at it. Same thing, just gonna get the tool here. snug. Just turn. Feel it gets loose. A little bit of tug on it. Again, gets loose again. Same way until it cuts right off. There you go. And now we have our ends all ready to be installed on the new line. So before I flare my end here, make sure you put your connector on before, because if you flare it, you won't be able to put it on. If you flare it before you put it on, you won't be able to get it on. And make sure you have the right, it's facing the correct way. You screw it into the back of the connector here. Make sure you have it going facing the right way as well. So let's go ahead and flare it. .3/16 brake line. So on this flaring tool, it's got different sizes from 1/2 inch all the way up to 3/8. So our brake line is 3/16, so we're going to be using the 3/16 slot. Just back this off to get it loose enough to get it in there. Once it's in there, just need to get it slightly above the hole. And then you're going to bring your tool in to flare the line. Back that off. Get it on here. And then make sure you get that center point right on the brake line and snug it out. You guys can see that. See, it's nice and snug on the brake line. So now I'm going to go ahead and flare it out and just turn it until it stops. Just give it a nice flare. Alright, take this off and check it to make sure it looks good. You don't want it to be cracked or anything like that, otherwise you'll leak brake fluid. So got a nice, good, even flare. You might have to do it a couple times to get it right. That's okay, that's normal. The last thing you want is to not be able to hold pressure. This one looks good. So we're gonna go with that. And I said, it's not uncommon for you to have to do several. And so just always make sure you leave enough line when you measure. Leave yourself plenty of line in case you go ahead and put it together and you have a leak and you have to redo the flare. Okay, so that's what I always do, give myself plenty of slack, just in case. I've done it before and it come back and it leaks and I have to go back and redo it. So hopefully this one is good. But you won't. Sometimes you won't know it's leaking until you start putting pressure to the lines and then you find a leak. So always leave myself plenty of extra lines for that, just in case. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here and snug it up, just so I can measure how much I'm gonna need. Easier to measure how much I'll need from here. So it's just snug for right now. Now for the other end. So first I'm gonna, before I flare it again, I'm gonna put my connector on that I took off from the old line. Put it on there first before I flare it. And I already measure how much I need to get to this end here. So, and I also leave myself plenty extra just in case my flaring end leaks. Just a good idea to just leave some extra, have some extra in case you need to, come back and cut the flare off and redo it again. Again, this one looks okay, so go ahead and give it a shot, and once I put it together, test it just to make sure there's no leak, and I can go ahead and reroute my lines the way it was. side is done. Now for the other side. Now we're gonna cut this off and this off so we can reuse our fittings. We need those. Got my brake line all measured out. Cut to the length I needed to on this side. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start in the flaring. And don't forget to put your fitting on first before you do your flaring. And again, this side is still the same, 3/16. So get your flare connected in that 3/16 slot. You just want it slightly above the where it's connected into the slot. Maybe a little less than 1/4 of an inch or so. Snug it down in there. Make sure it's nice and snug. Get your flaring tools in it. And just snug it down to where it just feels nice and snug. Not too tight, because you don't want to break the brake line. And that one didn't go so well, so I'm gonna have to redo that one. Let's try this again. And this one is looking a lot better. Nice, I like that one. Give that a try. And for the next end. sure these are nice and snug. Good also. Alright. I think I'm all done with the flaring. For now. Hopefully nothing leaks. Good to go. Alright. Alright, that end looks good as well, so now we can go ahead and reconnect our lines. Just gotta snug these down and then be ready to bleed our brakes. While I was replacing these brake lines, I decided to go ahead and replace these brake hoses as well. I think they're original, so I'm still cracking them, but just gonna go ahead and replace them while I'm here. Make sure you replace your new, install your new spacers. Put the line, brake line in, one before and one after. Prevent any leaking. because we replace all the lines, so now we have air in all the lines, so we gotta bleed the lines. So I'm just gonna let this gravity bleed, and I'm gonna start with the passenger side rear, and I'm gonna go to the driver side rear, and then from there I'm gonna move to the passenger side front, then the driver side front. That's how I'm gonna be bleeding this. So I'm gonna go ahead and break these bleeder screws loose until I start seeing fluid coming out. Before you start bleeding your brakes, you want to check the reservoir under the hood and make sure you top it off. Make sure it's nice and full, because the last thing you want to do is be letting this drain and empty your reservoir thing, get a lot more of everything. So make sure your reservoir is topped off under the hood before you start your bleeding sequence. I'm just making sure my reservoir is topped off, and before you put any fluid in here, make sure you're using the right brake fluid. Look up your vehicle and see what type of brake fluid it takes. This particular truck takes .3, so that's what I'm going to be topping it off with. Just make sure you always check brake fluid so you don't put the wrong type in there. As you can see, I got .3 here, so that's what I'm going to top it off with. So I got plenty in there, so as the gravity bleeds, I'll just come back and keep an eye on this to make sure it doesn't run low. It might take a while, so I'll come back when this is almost through. As you can see, it's got a nice steady drip in here on this side. So now I'm going to move to the next side and let it gravity bleed into it. Nothing comes out with fluid. So I'm waiting for this side to start dripping. I got the bleeder screw open. So once I start getting a steady stream of brake fluid from this side, I'll move on to the next wheel and so forth. And then once I get all my wheels having, all sides having a steady stream of brake fluid, I'll go ahead and pump the brake pedal. And if it's not firm enough the way I want it, I'll repeat the process again until I have a nice firm brake pedal. So you could be doing this up to 2 or 3 times, especially if you're doing it the way I'm doing it. This is the long way, but especially if you're by yourself, this is one way you can do this by yourself. It's just letting gravity bleed. And that can just take you a little bit longer, but it works, and you'll have a nice solid firm pedal every time. Got a steady stream of brake fluid coming from this side, so now I'm gonna tighten this up and go ahead and pump the brake pedal from there. There you go. All my lines bled down to where they're nice and steady dripping, and I'll go ahead and pump the brake pedal and see if it feels good. And if it has too much travel, I'll just repeat the process again. I'm gonna pump this brake pedal until, and that feels really nice and firm right there. Might repeat the process one more time, but yeah, it feels really good. So hopefully this video will help someone. to expect of your vehicle and make sure you're talking to the right specs. Last thing you want is to do a job and have a wheel fall off down the road.
If you happen to like this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.